Okay, so as you all know, this is a workshop on using, what I consider to be really the five most important platforms for musicians, especially independent niche, what I call weirdo musicians. Kind of the five most important things that you have to have going online in order to kind of get a base level of like, covering all the bases. Your music is in the right places, showing up to people, and then you can use those things in conjunction as we go through the workshop. You'll see that to build your audience. And this is, I always have the desire to put like little clip art pictures, and I decided to go with that this time and not deny myself. So I just look for a picture of one person sitting in an audience. I certainly have played shows for one person. It's a learning experience, not one that I would choose to repeat many times, but this is the one guy who's sitting in the audience watching our whatever we're doing, our weird music. Okay, so introduction. So I am, if you're not familiar with me, I'm a musician. I play guitar, I write music, I lead bands. I also co-lead with my partner in crime, Shania Blumenkrantz, a record label called Chant Records. And informally for a few years and formally for just about a year, coming up like in January, February, I have kind of tried to like codify what I'm doing now, which is teaching other musicians. It started kind of by accident during the pandemic, and there was a lot of interest in it. So I decided to keep going. I do these workshops, post things on social media. I have my email list, and I do consulting and coaching as well. If you signed up, more than a few days ago, I apologize. I wasn't able to send out another email, but I asked people to kind of think about what your goals are, other than being a musician and doing music and increasing your audience, which hopefully is why you're here. If you have specific goals, and in a word, the more specific you can be, the better, because you can measure it and you can target it. And then you will realize that maybe some things that you thought maybe you wanted to do are not as important as other things. And you can kind of hone in and use the resources. We all have limited resources, time, energy, money, whatever, like mental space. You can kind of maximize the resources that you're spending there. Okay. So having and identifying and zeroing in on those goals as a musician has a lot to do with knowing what your story is. And like I say here, this might be the most important question that you have to answer. And we'll get into this a little later. But your story as a musician is kind of the narrative, for lack of a better word, the narrative of who you are as an artist. And it's more than like, I play guitar, I write music. It's more on the level of like when I think of, just the first person who comes to mind that has like a really compelling story is Tom Waits, just as an example. So I know that person, that kind of almost like horror movie, dark, beautiful persona, in my opinion. I know that's not the real Tom Waits. I've heard interviews with him where he talks about driving his kids to like, sports practice and doing just normal things that we all do. But his story and his persona is always communicated no matter what it is. The album cover, the interview, well, maybe sometimes not the interview, but that's a separate thing. The story that he tells on stage, in video, with his clothing, everything. And this doesn't mean that you're only existing on a superficial level. It's actually that the artifice that you present should communicate what's deeper inside. And as artists, we kind of have to do that in a deliberate way, like it or not. It's not just going to come out. So, for example, like on social media, I encourage artists, you can post things that don't have anything to do with your music. I think you should, but they should all tell your story. So you can post something about going on a trip or liking a movie or reading a book, but make sure it tells your story. Make sure it's not just like a meal that you had or a book that you read that has nothing to do with what your story is. Those things should always align. That's very important. You put those together, and then you can get a sense of how you're going to tell that story and achieve the goals that you have as a musician. This is a thing that I've done workshops in and of itself on, and that's not my intention here, but I just kind of want to skim over the old music paradigm and the new music paradigm. So in a word, I just kind of cut it down to the top 5. These, in my opinion, are really the top 5 changes that I think have happened in the last decade or so. And I think we're solidly in the new music paradigm. It will continue to shift. But in a few words, the old music paradigm, which is, I think there's a range of ages of people here, but, like for me, when I was growing up, if you've been doing music for more than 10 years professionally, you've seen this. In whatever that constitutes the old days. For me, it was the 90s, but could be the 70s, could be the early 2000s, and then it starts to shift. So there was a high cost of album production going into a fancy studio. Everybody kind of wanted a major label contract. For me and my friends, it was like a bigger indie label like Discord Records or SST or something like that. But that still was about an authority figure for, I don't know if Ian MacKaye from Fugazi would identify it as an authority figure, but he's a gatekeeper. He decides what gets put out on his album, on his label. He decides what the cover art presumably looks like and all of that stuff. So there were labels and gatekeepers. That goes to the 4th point. The major thing that was happening from an economic and revenue perspective was you're selling records. If you go out on the road, we always used to say, or it was the common way of describing it, we're going out. Oh, sorry, I have a person in the waiting room. I'm just making sure she was able to get in. Sorry for the delay. Okay, great. What was I saying? Album sales. When you would go on tour, you would tour to support the album, which sounds crazy now, but that's what you're doing. And big tours would lose money. But if the album sales were there, then the goal was achieved. Like I said, gatekeepers, that's not only labels, but press, big festivals, things like that. And obviously, if I'm a fan and I go and experience the music, that comes through the purchase of a physical object, vinyl, CD, tape, and then I own it. It's mine, and I can listen to it as much as I want. And the artist doesn't get anything and doesn't know when I'm listening and has no like built-in connection to me when I'm listening. Whereas now, let's say you're releasing on YouTube, you can see the stats, you can interact with people, they leave comments. That wasn't set up before to happen automatically. In the new music paradigm, I think in a word, everything is like flipped on its head. Albums are very inexpensive comparatively, not that big. Studios don't exist. Not that there aren't projects that are best served by going to, I can't remember what it's called now, but the Power Station, if it still exists, Avatar, I think it's called. That was like the studio, but also big albums from Paul Simon down to whoever, me, whatever, anybody can make an album with a laptop and an interface, in their basement or whatever. Distribution obviously now is worldwide, immediate, and very cheap if you're doing digital distribution. You don't need a label. You need a DistroKid account. $20 a year or whatever. Some of them, I don't recommend doing any of the free ones because they're not accountable, but it's very cheap. There's no standardized barometer of success now. We've seen, musicians who become successful on YouTube and only on social media. There are musicians who do live stream concerts, house concerts. There are musicians who are not really online at all and still define their success by the old model. So that kind of almost a single vector of success doesn't really exist anymore, which I think opens up a lot of opportunities for us. There are no more gatekeepers, but, press, whatever, it's still there to some extent, but there's a proliferation of music blogs and YouTube channels and things like that. But the market is flooded. If you're on a streaming service, there's, not really, but seemingly millions of albums uploaded every day. It's crazy. The volume of things is really, exponentially more than it ever was. Also, if fans are listening to your music digitally, they don't own it. They're listening on Spotify. They're listening on YouTube. Yes, we have MP3s, but, I think statistically, and revenue-wise, streaming surpassed anything else in terms of the way that people listen to music about 4 or 5 years ago. I think between 2015 and 2017, that's when it surpassed everything else. Not that the other stuff doesn't exist, but that's the major way that people are listening. And I'm talking about, you know, I can't even, like Drake or Anthony Braxton or whatever. I think, you know, it's going to vary from musician to musician, but overall, including the weird stuff, it's streaming. That's where it's at right now. This is a very important concept that I want to go through briefly, but it's a really important idea. It's called a funnel. I'm going to kind of skim over this because I want to get into the meat of the workshop sooner than later. But the basic idea of the funnel, it's a marketing term. It's used in like digital marketing and probably other marketing also. But let's say you post a video. I decide that I want people to sign up for my email list. I post a video. And then I say, you know, let's say it's on Instagram, just for, you know, the example. And I put the link to my email list sign up in my bio. And then I say, I'm going to play a little bit of my song and say, to sign up for my email list and get a free whatever access to an exclusive video, click the link in my bio. So let's say I get 1,000 views on that video. The way it normally works is, let's say 100 people are going to like the video. 20 people are going to be like, oh, this sounds good. I'll check out what he's doing. Go to my bio, click on the link. 7 will actually sign up. And then I didn't put that here, but maybe 2 will buy the album. That higher level of engagement with a smaller number of people at every level is the funnel. That's what it is. And almost everything works this way. You can think of like people who come to see your show. How many people of those buy merch? How many people of those go to see another show? So this kind of system, if you can really be aware of it and tap into the potential to make a funnel, because if you just post a video and you say, sign up for my email list, and you don't put a link, then that's the top of the funnel, and then everybody's gone. And likewise, if you only have the bottom of the funnel, like just a link, and you're not driving anybody to that link, very few people are going to sign up. So we'll see as we go through the workshop that these platforms can work together to create funnels that enable you to build up your audience. Email is the first one. And for the purposes of this workshop, I'm seeing that as like the prototypical bottom of the funnel. It doesn't have to be. It can be buying an album. It can be supporting you, on Patreon. It can be subscribing to your monthly releases on Bandcamp. Anything that's like the action that you want them to take is the bottom of the funnel. But for the purposes of this, think of signing up for the email list as like the prototype. And then you, in your own situations, can apply it, as needed. So email, contrary to what a lot of people think, and it's understandable, contrary to what I thought, it's the #1 promotional tool. It's like the least sexy, least new thing. And I put here, this image is, I just looked up, like, this is like an old email. This might even be from the 80s, this picture here. So, but when somebody signs up for your email list, they are telling you that they want to actively get what you're putting out in terms of the content of the email newsletter. And they're allowing you to have a valuable piece of information. And they are saying, like, I get 1 million, everybody gets too much email. It's annoying on some level, but I still want to give you that piece of information in order to get your music, your tour announcements, your release announcements, etc. So all of that means that it's very important that only add people who sign up to your email list, meaning have a form, a sign-up form, and add people that way. Don't just add people to your email list who didn't ask to be on it. I think it's, I don't know if it's illegal, but just don't do it. It's not, I don't like when people do that to me, and I don't do that. And then obviously, any normal email service provider, which I'll talk about, has a little link at the bottom of every email to unsubscribe. Make it easy. You only want people on your list who want to be there. That will make everything better. You won't have to pay for a higher level on MailChimp or whatever. So that gets into the ESP. Don't use your Gmail account or whatever to blast an email list. I am surprised that some people still do this. I get emails from musicians who do this. It doesn't have an unsubscribe by default, and Gmail is not meant to blast out 400 people or 4,000 people. Sign up for something like MailChimp or HubSpot. A lot of them are free. MailChimp is free up to 2,000 people. I don't know about HubSpot, but for a variety of reasons, use a real email service provider for your email list. You can incentivize them. You should incentivize them. Give them something that will be of value and interesting and fun for them, but that's not too costly or time consuming for you. It could be a private exclusive video that you put on YouTube, make it unlisted and put the link in the thank you email, so only they will see it. My label gives like a compilation, a free compilation, download and streaming. You know, it can be things like that. It can be a coupon code, anything like that. You should send your emails regularly, at least once a month, if not more than that. And this is a weird, also not so intuitive thing. The more you send emails, the higher your engagement will be. It's a weird thing because you think, well, that's going to annoy people more. If you don't send it every day. Don't go overboard. But I think anything between once a week and once a month is actually really good. They can be short, you know, you can experiment with it, but I recommend, it's a lot of work to do. So even now for my music business, I'm only sending once a month. That's fine. Start there. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but don't be afraid of sending too many emails. People will unsubscribe, but that's fine. Send it out regularly. And then the next question is like, you know, I don't always have something coming out. So what do you talk about? Well, I put here, hint, it's not all about you. There's a variety of things you can talk about, but going back to what I said before, it has to tell your story. So one of your stories could be, I'm in this awesome community of musicians in my town or in my scene that I want to tell you about. And I've done this before. You give like a little shout out to a friend who has a tour or a release coming out. And like, you know, like I did that once for my friend Jessica. She put an album out and I was like, hey, I'll give you a shout out in my email. So that's what my newsletter was about. It satisfied the kind of requirement to send something out at that time. It helped Jessica, and it told my story because I'm like, Jessica plays in my band. She's a great, I'm just using her as an example. Jessica plays in my band. She's a great, you know, multi-instrumentalist. She has her own band. Check it out. So it's not like, I'm not just saying, oh, I found it. I read about this on Pitchfork, you know, and check it out. You could do that. It doesn't matter as long as it is lined up with telling your story. It could be about a great restaurant you went to. It could be a movie that you liked, anything, but you have to tell your story with it. And then when you have the release, I think that your fans, the people on your list, will get the impression, the feeling that you're not just always trying to sell them something, because that feels kind of gross. It's not about that. It's about communication and putting your art and your music out into the world, and people will know that and appreciate it. I'm going to kind of skip this one because just for time's sake, but I'll just say the next two. Keep your design super simple, black text on a white background. If you want to get a little creative, always, I think it's an accessibility thing on the internet, you know, for eyesight, but also it just is a best practice design-wise. Don't put light or white text on a dark background. If somebody's reading like more than a paragraph, it's hard on the eyes and it looks a little weird. If you want to put another background, fine. Keep the design simple, simple, simple. And then a drip campaign is simply something that goes out automatically once somebody signs up for your list. It could be, you know, I sign up for your list, I get a thank you email immediately with a coupon code. Then a week later, I get, you know, check me out on social media with all the links. A week later, get like, here's my YouTube channel and check out my latest video. Those can all be automated and set up so that you don't do anything. Somebody signs up and it happens. Once the drip campaign is over, the people get dropped into your normal list so that the email you have going out December 1st about your show, they'll get. So you sign up, you get a bunch of automated emails that bring you into the world, into the story, and then you get the normal emails. Okay, so let me just see how we are for time. Not that far behind. I wanted to keep it to 45 minutes. It's going to go a little over. I hope that's okay. Like I said, if anybody has to drop, I'll send out the recording, but I do want to have time for your questions. Next, let's go to website. A website is often not where people start in terms of, if I hear about somebody, it might be on Spotify, YouTube, social media, a music blog, but eventually you need to have a home base for people to go to check out your music, where everything lives. There are a lot of options for ways to design and upkeep, maintain a website. I just listed a few of them here: WordPress, Squarespace. I've heard on a lot of music podcasts, I hear advertisements for Bandzoogle. It's, I think, supposed to be a platform that caters to musicians and has it already set up, like a place to put your tour dates, a place to put your releases. It can really be anything, as long as it's easy to use, friendly for your level of technical knowledge, and just quick and easy. And you also need to be able to update it yourself. You shouldn't have to email a web developer or something like that to update your bio or at a show. If you want to change a header or have some extra functionality, sure, you might need to call somebody, but it should be like quick. They also have some of these, like if you're somebody who's on the road a lot, some of these platforms you can just update from your phone, just like new tour announcement, boom. It should be really, really quick. Make sure your website is updated. The worst thing is to go and be like, upcoming shows, and it's for 2019. We've all seen that. That's not good. Better to keep it updated on your show page, for example. Say, I don't have anything coming up right now, but check out this concert video from Berlin last year, something like that. That's current, and you can leave that up. Well, you shouldn't say last year. Keep it evergreen, 2021, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Keep it so when a user comes to your site, they don't see something that's old, because that to me communicates like, is this person even doing music anymore? Like, what happened? So obviously, like I said, it should be easy so you can do it quickly. This at the bottom here is a list of things that should go on your website. Obviously, your music in various forms. If I'm a user, I should be able to click and hear something. It could be a Bandcamp embed. It could be a YouTube video embed. It could be a SoundCloud embed, whatever. You should have some video for better or for worse. We're in a visual culture, so people want to be able to see things. It can be a video on your phone, that's fine. If it's a little more professional, that's great. Some kind of video so they can see you. Mailing list sign up should kind of be everywhere without being too annoying. A pop-up that comes up after somebody's been on your site for a few minutes, totally fine. It's annoying and it's gonna annoy people, but that's life. You don't want to have it popping up all the time, but kind of find a nice balance so people see it and people sign up. Obviously, listings of your shows, photos, professional photos are great, but they're not necessary. A bio, I think a paragraph or two is fine for a website, even one paragraph. Some press that you've gotten with links and quotes, a way to contact you. If you have a manager, you can have that, like they can contact you or your management, whatever, just some way to contact you. Your social media links should go in the top of your website and the bottom, like the header and the footer. That's the normal place where people expect to see them. Some kind of link to a store, whether that's Bandcamp or it's a Shopify. There's another one that a lot of musicians use. I'm not remembering it now, but some link. Doesn't have to all be self-contained on your website, but as the home base, the website is the place where people can go out to see all these things. And then an EPK, which is an electronic press kit. Some people hide this on their website or password protected if they have downloads that they don't want to give to everybody. But this is not for fans. This is for press or a festival booker or a potential manager, somebody who would have a need for a press kit, have some version of that on your site. There are some websites where you can do this, like they have it set up and you pay. I've never found that to be necessary. Just put, music to stream and download, some good videos, a one sheet, maybe, if you're touring a lot, like put your stage plot and your rider there so that you don't have to send it to people. It's just there, things like that. Anything that you would want somebody to have who's in that position of booking or, writing about you or something like that. Everybody good so far? I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm like, wow, this guy talks fast, but I do. So I haven't had coffee in like 4 hours, so I can't blame that. Okay, I'll keep going and we'll get to questions soon. So social media is, as I have it here, a tool to tell your story. And, a hammer is a tool. you can build something and you can also smash yourself in the face with it. So like, it's good and bad. And like, we all know that it can be, I think it can be very good for information, for community. It can also be very bad. That's what it is. But make sure, because social media is a tool of communication, that when you're communicating about yourself and your music, that you're telling the story. Again, put a picture of you going out to a restaurant, but it has to tell your story. You know, it has to be relevant to that. One little tip that I didn't put here, but I read it somewhere and it really works. If you're going to show yourself, like, if you want to say, if you're excited about an album that you just bought, let's say you bought vinyl, instead of taking a picture of the album and posting it, take a picture of yourself holding the album. So you're in the picture, because you think, because you're posting all the time, that people see you and they don't want to see you anymore. But somebody who's just scrolling through their feed, they may have only seen you once or whatever. They want the familiarity. And also, like, there's a psychological thing. People want to see photos of other people's faces. That's how we connect. Obviously, connection through social media is imperfect at best, but they see your face. That's like face-to-face. Seth Godin is great on this stuff. He's not a music person. I think he was maybe at one point, but he's a great marketing guy. He can be a little bit polished and maybe a little cheesy to some people, which I understand, but he's definitely worth checking out. He has a famous TED Talk. That's where he got known, but he's got all kinds of stuff. I would just check out some of his videos online. He has a really, in my opinion, like, quite sophisticated way of thinking about marketing and storytelling and what that really is. The next one is virality, like a viral video. Nobody should care or try or don't even think about anything going viral. Because if you think about the funnel, a viral video, let's say, is like a hyper exaggerated top of the funnel. Everybody sees it. Oh my God, you see this thing? This guy's like, you know, his dog is playing the saxophone or like whatever. And then, but the people who see, like, you could get 1 million views. Nobody's going to care who you are. Nobody's going to check your music out. Maybe a few people. I mean, whatever, if it happens, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it should never be something that's even on our mind. That's a goal or anything. It's nothing. It's the opposite of a funnel with meaningful engagement, where you start online and then 6 months later, somebody's at your show telling you how much your music means to them. That's not going to happen from a viral video, in my opinion. There are a lot of platforms out there. There are tons. I mean, I guess it's kind of come down to 4 or 5 social media platforms. Pick one that seems best for what you do. Just because there are a lot out there doesn't mean you have to be on all of them. And even if you're on all of them, you really should focus on one. That just makes things easier, less overwhelming. You can kind of optimize that. I do Instagram. I like it. It seems like a less of a contentious kind of place where people are fighting. It's more about broadcasting and sharing. It's always visual, which can be hard for musicians to have a visual component to what we're putting out there. But I found it to be good. It very, very well may be different for you. You may find YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, they all have their pluses and minuses. Whatever you do on social media, you have to define what your goals are. If you don't know what those goals should be, a great place to start is email list. Build your list, tell your story, get people to sign up to your email list from these different channels like social media, and set everything up to achieve that goal. It doesn't have to be you don't have to mention that in every single post, but if that's your goal, make sure you're, regularly telling people about it, incentivizing things like that. The importance of video, I really already talked about. Again, visual culture, it is what it is. People want to see video, people want to see people playing music, talking about it, but there always should be a visual component. Just like with the email list should be regular, posting on social media should be regular, even if it's once a week. Some people go overboard many, many times a day. If you have time, whatever, but it should be consistent. And efficiency is very important. There are the two things, that I'll say about that are that there are apps like I'm totally blanking on what it's called now. Oh, Hootsuite, I think it is, where you can schedule your social media posts ahead of time. So let's say you have 3 hours on a Sunday. You don't have to always be on social media. You can set your posts up on one day to go out, send this out on Monday. Like if you have a show on Saturday, send out this post on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday before the show, for example. Twitter has TweetDeck. There's one called Plann, Plann, that allows you, I think, to connect it to your Instagram account, and then it will just feed it based on what you've already set up. Okay, we're moving along. Okay, streaming. So I put the little picture of an angel and a devil here. It is both. I think it's an angel and a devil. It's worldwide distribution for anybody at almost no cost. That is a positive. You get 0.00003 cents, and you enrich somebody, in Spotify's case, who I think invests in weapons. That's not good. But if you don't want to use streaming, don't use it. Nobody should tell you that you have to or that you have to not. It's whatever's works for you. There are a lot of musicians out there who are successful based on their version of success who do not use streaming. And there are also a lot of musicians who do. But here are a few things to remember. One, it's not a replacement for physical, physical releases, vinyl or CDs or downloads. So when I see people post on social media, I got my check from Spotify at 35 cents. It's like, well, yeah, I'm not saying that's fair, but that's not the same as selling somebody a vinyl record that they're holding in their hands and paying you $30 for. It's a different thing. When you stream, you don't own the music. So you're not giving it to somebody when you're on a streaming platform. The positive there is that allows you, which I'll talk about in a minute, to have your profile page on Spotify, let's say, and you can have your gigs on there through whatever website connects to Spotify. So if I'm a big fan of you and I want to listen to you on Spotify, every time I go back to Spotify, I'm potentially going to see that you have a show coming up. That's not the same with other forms of media. In streaming, the fan kind of journey is reversed. Like I was saying, in the 90s, there was this record store in the next town over from where I grew up, and we would when a new Jane's Addiction or Fugazi record came out, we were there the first day it was on sale. But when I went to buy, In on the Kill Taker, the great Fugazi record, I already knew them. I was already a fan. That's how I was able to spend my lawn mowing money on that. I already had the commitment based on whatever, that I was a fan first and then a listener. Now it's the opposite. If I just heard about somebody the other day and I was like, oh, I'll check them out on Spotify. There was no barrier to entry for me to listen to this band because it didn't cost me anything. I didn't have to get out of my chair. I just put it on my phone and checked it out. So you listen first, and then if I like them, I think it was Alan Johannes from, he's connected to Mike Patton and the Ipecac scene and maybe Queens of the Stone Age also. It was great. But I didn't know who he was. I checked him out. And then if I'm going to go down that funnel, once I've heard the music, I then become a fan. It's the opposite of what it was before. As I said, with putting your information in your profile, you can put shows there. You can put your merch there on Spotify as well, physical merch, things like that. If you're going to be on there, use all of the tools that they give you to have your profile and to have the links. Most platforms, most big streaming platforms, have a for artists version of the app. And I believe on Spotify, if you don't want to be on Spotify, if you're not on it, you can still be on the artists app if your music is on there. So it's Spotify for artists. There's a sign up, and then you can see the statistics, how many people listened and how many people saved it and things like that. And then you can control your bio and your photos and things like that. You can use all of these things to build funnels. Somebody will go in at the top, hear your music, check out your profile, click on the link, get on your email list. The last thing, again, kind of out of scope of what we're doing today, but different platforms have different ways of dealing with playlists. I know Spotify best because I use it as a user, and I also do a lot of promotional stuff on there. There are algorithmic playlists that are created by the algorithm, recommending things for you, telling you what you listened to last year, end of year, all that stuff. There are editorial playlists. I think the same as, I don't know if what Amazon does, but Apple Music has playlists as well. I think Amazon does it also. Some of the other ones, Tidal, I think, has it. There are editorial playlists, which is people who work for the company make, official playlists. And then there are fan playlists. And again, this is a whole rabbit hole that we can get down. I will just say that it's in my opinion, if you're on Spotify and you're going to do that with your music, it's worth looking into checking out some fan created playlists. These are just normal users who are making playlists. But a lot of times in the description of the playlist, they put their email address or at least their name. And then you can look them up and say, hey, maybe you can add this to your playlist, and you include a Spotify link. I've had several playlist placements from that. Just a fan, it's weird niche music anyway. They're not getting spammed. Probably if they have like a free jazz playlist, like nobody's spamming them. That would be my guess. It's a small community. You can connect with them, and you can get your music on their playlist. And then that is a place where people are already coming to listen to that music, and your music will be added to it. So that's a whole thing, but that's just a very quick introduction to it. Oh, we're not that bad on time. Okay. Bandcamp. So in my opinion, Bandcamp is like the best platform out there for music, especially for more niche people. It's a self-selecting community of music nerds, fans, creators, journalists, things like that. The art on there is amazing. That to me is just an indication of their commitment. There are some drawbacks. Their incorporation of video isn't great, although maybe that's intentional, and it's good that we don't have to worry about it because it's about the music, not necessarily the video. As far as I know, there's still no way if I make an album with somebody, it can only be listed on one Bandcamp page. So we have to make one that is like either one of our individual pages or a combined one. Whereas on Spotify, if two artists make an album, it will show up on each one's individual page. You can't do that on Bandcamp. I think it's against their, their terms, and it just doesn't really work. Bandcamp has fees, obviously. To me, I don't mind paying a percentage for a good platform, but it is what it is, and you have to know what those are. And then this company, Epic Games, I think it's called, bought Bandcamp maybe last year. So that's a big question mark. I haven't seen, as an artist, a user and a label owner, I have not seen many huge changes on Bandcamp, but they may be down the road. I don't really know about video games, but I don't even know if that's a big company, but I imagine it is, but they may put things in place that are not good down the line, but that remains to be seen. Just like I said on Spotify artists, Bandcamp gives you the tools on your profile page to put your picture and an image at the top and a link to your website and a little bio. Use all of those things. It makes the page look better. It's more engaging. It's another place to put your story. And I know, because I've experienced this on my label, if you don't have all that stuff filled out, the Bandcamp editors are not going to cover you. I've gotten emails like, hey, your artist so-and-so doesn't have a profile picture. We want to put them in an editorial feature, but we can't do it without a picture. So it's easy, it's quick, just do it and fill everything out. There is a system of tagging on Bandcamp, which for some reason is not explained that much. I figured this out through looking into it. And then I made a YouTube explainer video, and nobody else had a video on that. It just happens. So, I can put a link to it in the email that I send out to you after this workshop. But if you search up Bandcamp tags on video, my video will come up. It's not to brag. I don't have any like big videos on Bandcamp, but on YouTube rather, but it is, the video has been useful to a lot of people. And it's just another thing to put in place on your Bandcamp page to help people see, and the video explains everything. You can also put merch, not just the physical releases, but t-shirts, stickers, hats, whatever you have, you can put on there. And if it's a self-selecting community of music nerds, those are people who are going to want to buy your merch. When you put out a release on Bandcamp, you want to set up a pre-order. What that is the album is announced, and then you can set it up so that obviously a pre-order is you pay now and then you get it down the road, like in a week or two, but you can also enable one song or more. I recommend one, but a certain number of songs to be accessible to listeners, and that the user, the fan, will get the download when they buy the pre-order. Like it's an instant gratification, that's what they call it. You buy the pre-order, you get one track, you get the album when it comes out. But the great thing about that is, even if you sell 10 or 20 or 30 records, Bandcamp counts all the sales on the release day, not the pre-order day that they bought it. The more sales you have, the more likely you're going to be to show up on the Bandcamp homepage, things like that. It builds. Bandcamp, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but Bandcamp has an artist guide. It's just bandcamp.com/guide that walks you through all this stuff. Going back up to the releases, it explains how to set your music up properly to get the eye of the editors at Bandcamp. You set it up as a draft, you send them an email. That's the good side. The bad side, which is sometimes hard, is your music has to be on there like 8 to 9 weeks ahead of time. Otherwise, their editorial calendar won't be able to catch up with it. But it's, definitely worth doing that, reaching out to them. A feature on Bandcamp, will get you a lot of listeners, if nothing else. But then it has its own funnel because they'll click on it to listen, and then they may go down the funnel and buy it. Also, if you put out music on a fairly regular basis, look into Bandcamp subscriptions. That's, as the name indicates, a monthly or yearly fee where I, as a fan, will get everything that you produce automatically. And then you, if you have a community of people who are supporting you, that's a way to like generate revenue that you can collect, use it to make your music, and then, it snowballs from there. You can do discount codes and lots of other things. That's just, if you go through the artist guide, it'll explain that. Discount codes, download codes, things like that, incentivizing people to check out your music, to follow you on Bandcamp. In the tools section of Bandcamp, there's a mailing list. If you go to your profile and then tools, you'll see. And they make a CSV or some other spreadsheet file that you can download, and then you add those people to your mailing list. When somebody buys an album, there's a little checkbox that says, do you want to be added to the artist mailing list? If they check that, it gets added to that spreadsheet, but then you manually have to download the spreadsheet and then upload it to MailChimp or whatever. And that obviously constitutes that they're opting into your mailing list. There are the first Friday of every month, it's not been every month, but a lot of months since the pandemic started, are Bandcamp Fridays. They don't take revenue on that day, and it's a day of a lot of traffic, if nothing else. But that's always a good day to put out music, to offer a discount code, things like that. And if you go to isitbandcampfriday.com, you'll get the date of the next Bandcamp Friday, which is very useful. In addition to the artist guide, there's also a help center. If you just Google Bandcamp Help Center, if you're having trouble with something, there's a lot of resources there. Okay, all right. So we're going through, hope everybody is hanging in. I just have a few more slides and then we'll get to some questions. And, of course, I hope everything has been useful so far. So this slide is like one example of how these 5 platforms can work together to make a funnel and then allow you to then communicate with the people who have gone through the funnel to the bottom and joined your mailing list. So I just put this here as an example. Streaming, like Spotify, you can have social links. I don't think you can have an email list, sign up directly. Regardless, somebody's on a streaming platform, they go to your social media, they check you out, they sign up for your email list. Somebody, from an article or whatever gets to your website, there's a sign up form there, they get on your email list. Somebody's on Bandcamp, they click that little check mark when they buy your record, they're on your email list. The email list then kind of turns in, like the funnel almost turns upside down, where you're then kind of broadcasting to the people on your list that you have shows coming up, you have releases, crowdfunding, like I said, giving shout outs. So that's kind of a very basic idea of how this all works together, but there are many, 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 many possibilities, for how to use all these platforms together to achieve your goals, whatever those goals may be. Okay, so all of that said, this is literally, I was very on the nose, literal here. That's an iceberg, and you see it's big at the bottom. I found this picture oddly scary. Like, I guess that's real. It's iceberg. That's crazy. Icebergs are huge at the bottom, but this, as the saying goes, is the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of factors I didn't even talk about: playing live, different crowdfunding, platforms, advertising, meaning like using Facebook and Instagram ads to drive people to your website or to Bandcamp or Spotify. Sync licensing is a whole world. Licensing and writing music for film, TV, video games. There's a lot more to talk about: merch, video, and of course, putting your music out on purple vinyl, which is the best color of vinyl to have. In addition to the 5 platforms idea, I've kind of been formulating an idea of the 5 principles that I see as like, almost like the 5 platforms is the what, and the 5 principles is like, I guess, the how or the why. So just, I'll say, one little thing about each one of these, and then I think, do I have questions next? Yes, we can get to questions. So user experience is, the basic idea of it is very simple, but it's a very, important thing. Try to think as a potential fan or user or, concert attendant would think. For example, and this is not mine, I heard this from somebody. If you put the merch table at a show in a dark corner, like all the way at the other side of the venue, with no lights, nobody sitting there, you're probably not going to get many people to buy your t-shirts. If you put it with a friend at the exit of the venue with a light and somebody there wearing your shirt, the user, the fan, is going out there anyway. They just were blown away by your music, and that is going to make them a lot more likely to buy something. That's user experience, thinking from the mindset of the user. Consistency, the second one, goes through everything we talked about. That's very important. In general, I would say with this stuff, because we didn't talk about music at all, and that's intentional. This workshop is not about music. It's about the business side. It's better to do something consistently with a commitment and a kind of a plan than, it's better not to do it than to do it inconsistently, like social media, all those things. It's really important. Obviously, the quality of the things that you produce and making sure that everything is up to your standards is very important. Knowing that a lot of this is about experience and getting experience, which leads to knowledge over time. You're only going to find out by doing it. And then finally, what I talked about at the beginning, but has a lot more to say about it, is storytelling, crafting your story so you are consciously telling it with whatever you do.